on Irma Frey's, and from his humble years as a farm boy, he began his career in the tool and die industry with no formal training, but a strong work ethic. He became an apprentice toolmaker in Dayton in the late 1930s. And as legend goes, Frey's was at a family picnic and realized they had forgotten to bring along a church key. Anybody heard of a church key? It was the tool used to open a beer. He was forced to open the can of beer with the bumper of his car. Now that's pretty good ingenuity. But he was convinced that there was a better way. After countless design iterations and failed trials, Frey's concept for forming a rivet using only the material in the end to attach a tab was commercially launched by Iron City Beer Company in the early 1960s. This became the beginning of what we would know today as the Easy Pop Top, or the Easy End opening. The popularity of the Easy Open End was so great that 75% of the beers sold in the U.S. came in cans with the Pop Tops in only a few short years. Can you imagine that? A millionaire based on just trying to open up his beer quicker. So he created opportunity to innovate in a beverage can market. And maybe you've heard of the Frey's Pavilion that's named after him here locally. So our last panel of the conference focuses on opportunities in the digital space. I hope you enjoy it.
Thanks for sticking around, guys. We got about 90 slides left to brief you on, and then we'll get you out of here. No, really, this is going to be more of a conversation. I'm hugely impressed by everybody on stage and Lieutenant Colonel Meager online. This panel is it's got some really neat stuff, and not just because I'm a geek, but because some of the stuff that these folks are doing is truly impressive. We'll start with Bonnie. She is a senior procurement analyst for the Chief Digital and AI Office, CDAO, leading efforts to design and build a rapid acquisition environment to accelerate the pace of digital analytics and AI delivery to the DoD. In her previous role, she served as the Deputy Product Lead for Applied Cyber Technologies, leading efforts to provide the infrastructure and environments necessary for defensive cyber innovation and integration. She has an MBA from Liberty University and a BA in political science in Spanish from Virginia Tech. Okay. Lieutenant Colonel Tom Meager online is the AFWorks Prime Division Chief. In that role, he leads the acceleration of emerging dual-use technology markets by leveraging government resources for rapid and affordable fielding for the Department of the Air Force. Lieutenant Colonel Meager commissioned from the Air Force Academy in 2004. A graduate of the U.S. Air Force Test Pilot School, he has held positions as an operational B-52 pilot, that's awesome, program manager and testing evaluation pilot for multiple aircraft platforms. Recent assignments include commanding the 419th Flight Test Squadron for B-1, B-2, and B-52 developmental test and C-12 training operations, followed by graduation from the Eisenhower School for National Security and Resource Strategy. Mr. Luke Schultz here. You all probably know him pretty well by now. The Director of Small Business for AFL-CMC, Wright-Patterson. The organization is responsible for overseeing reviews of approximately $36 billion in center procurements and maximizing small business opportunities. Luke also said, as a gift for you guys sticking around, he's going to give everybody a free government contract after this, right?
Wow.
The center supports acquisitions. I love throwing you under the bus. My fault, buddy. With small business offices across all operating locations. Prior to his current assignment, Mr. Schultz served as the chief of the Pricing Division, Air Force Installation Contracting Agency, Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center. He led a 12-person staff that provided pricing support to a worldwide organization of 750 personnel, responsible for a total contract portfolio of $55 billion. AFICA contracting authority and support extends across 8 major commands and 77 operational contracting squadrons. Last but certainly not least, Lieutenant Colonel John Drummond, CEO of Business Enterprise Bestman. Lieutenant Colonel Drummond is the CEO of Bestman Software Factory, the Air Force's mobile solution center based in Montgomery, Alabama. In this role, he leads a 288-member Agile DevSecOps ecosystem that supports the delivery of mobile and web applications that improve airmen's quality of life, mission success, and safety. Additionally, it is Bestman's mission to support airman enablement and one of the leaders of digital transformation for the Air and Space Force. With a passion for the development of airmen, Colonel Drummond has held multiple leadership positions in the training, cyber, and communication space to include commanding the 81st Communications Squadron at Keesler Air Force Base, supporting 12,000 personnel and 30,000 students annually. So with the introductions done, I really just want to give you guys each an opportunity to talk about your organizations, a good overview, mission, vision, and we'll start with Luke to my left.
Well, thanks, Billy. Thanks again for having me. I know General Morris was talking about, him being on the second day, and, I think this is the second time I'm right before happy hour. So, and
good time.
Yeah, we've done quite a few panels. Last week we were at the SAME event, so yeah, very comfortable talking with you and all. Yeah, doing the support. So in essence, put together a slide deck of about 10 slides. They're going to put them out on the website. Has a lot of vital information on there. In essence, what our mission is encourage the program offices and teams at Air Force Lifecycle Management Center to seek and consider small businesses. So in essence, what we're a liaison between the small business industrial base, the small business administration, and then also the program teams. So as far as what our office does is we coordinate on the DD 2579, so the small business coordination forums, and help teams with their acquisition strategy and make sure they consider small businesses. Then we also do InReach, which is acquisition training, which has changed quite a bit since COVID. We used to do a lot of it in person. Now, as General Morris talked about, really using those IT resources and tools out there, do it in the virtual environment. So we do a lot of training to the acquisition teams, make sure they understand the innovative solutions that small businesses bring, and also, the rule of two, if there's two technically capable small businesses, be set aside. We also do outreach. Our major outreach event, the preeminent event for us, is Lifecycle Industry Days, like General Morris talked about. It was great this year because we also had right dialogue with industry, with Air Force Research Labs. So I really called it a Power Pack Week. And I know you were on a panel there. And we really pushed to try to do panels that are going to deliver value to the small business industrial base and help out. So we do a lot of in-reach and a lot of outreach. We do various colliders. I know shout out to Jim Masonbrink, who I don't see in the audience right now. He's probably out there already enjoying happy hour.
Right.
But yeah, he's with Wright Brothers Institute, and he really helps us out as far as we do a lot of colliders. So that's really been one of the, I know, talking to various small businesses, and depending upon the size you are, we've really leveraged the virtual environment to make sure that we do virtual events and then, combination of virtual and in-person, which has been great because then they can save up for events like Lifecycle Industry Days, maybe do an exhibitor booth, things like that. So, and then also spread the information. Jim's great. Sometimes he doesn't hit the record button right at the exact time, but then we make sure we remind him to do that, because a lot of what we're seeing is registering for events. If they don't have the time or something's conflicting, they'll go back to it, and there's a lot of great information there. So, and then, part of our job too is to do counseling, one-on-ones with small businesses. So we're here to help you out and hear your concerns and provide you advice and stuff. So the other stuff that I put on there, just looking through my list, updated the various locations for Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, the small business professionals that are there to help you out. At my office, I have 6 small business professionals listed there. About 2 hours away at Heath, Ohio for AFMETCAL, we have 2 part-time small business professionals. 2 up at Hanscom Air Force Base. I know Jeff Inmans and Andrea Panagoulis are probably looking forward to getting ready for New Horizons at the beginning of the year. I know they do a great job up there. Down at Maxwell Gunter Air Force Base, just recently in the last year, Yolanda McCain's down there. They just had the DAF, the DAF, Department of the Air Force Information Technology Conference. So Yolanda McCain's really been hitting the ground running, taking over for Denise Baylor, who's enjoying a requirement. Then down at Eglin Air Force Base, it's Anita Jackson. Her deputy position is vacant right now, but we should probably see somebody in that position very soon. So I know Anita's extremely busy with the end of the fiscal year. Seems like every conference is at the end of the fiscal year, so there's a lot going on. Then also it lists the other Life Cycle Management Center operating locations, Tinker, Robbins, and then also Hill with the new small business directors there. Ronnie Hobbs is up at Tinker and the Air Force Sustainment Center director. Lynn Garrett's up at Hill, and then Tim Edmonds is down at Robbins. And Ronnie Hobbs took over for Tracy Nicholson, and he's a wealth of information, and looking forward to speaking with small businesses. So I have that in there. As far as our economic impact or our influence for fiscal year 21, $4.8 billion in small business obligations. We account for over 51% of AFMC's small business spend. I just looked at recently the small business numbers were updated through August, and it looks like it's going to be another a good year for Air Force Life Cycle Management Center. So we have a lot of impact there. Also included pointers for industry, the DODAX for the various operating locations there, which is very useful. I know you do a great job at providing advice on, I know everyone loves sam.gov and searching for opportunities on there.
Our favorite.
I know you do the advanced course too, so there's DODAX where you can search for information there. So that's great. We also have the 2 websites listed there, our Air Force Life Cycle Management Small Business website, which you can access information there. We have a capability database where you can upload your capability statement and then the NAICS that you operate under, which industry and then also government acquisition teams can access. So that's great. And then we're also tied into the Air Force Research Lab Small Business Hub with our emails. A lot of the Collider information's out there. A lot of great information's there. The other thing else I'd like to point out, if you just go to the aflcmc.mil or AFLCMC website, a lot of questions we get as far as organizational charts and information. We spent a lot of time with public affairs and with program offices. Recently, we just updated the org structure. I think it's dated August 2022. So it breaks down all the different various program executive officers, the directorates, execution, things like that. And spent quite a bit of time on updating the websites to make sure that there's useful information out there for you. So, and then as far as, opportunities, I'll touch on one that General Morris talked about, Eglin Air Force Base, as far as the digital trinity and really impacting and leveraging the digital transformation is the EWAC is the Eglin-wide Agile Acquisition contract that they put together. They had an initial award, and then they did an on-ramp, and I just talked with Anita Jackson, and I know at the beginning of the calendar year, they're looking to, I believe, onboard some other additional businesses. So that's a great vehicle to look at. And really, from our standpoint, the digital transformation is going to touch every aspect of Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, from training, the digital university, just how we do work as far as the collaboration and leveraging the digital enterprise, the IT tools. I know, look at me, I've got a little note sheet here. It actually should be digital, so.
Very, very bleeding edge.
Yeah, so, but yeah, a lot of great things going on, a lot of good information out there, and a lot of opportunities. And I know they said before, we partnered with AFMC Small Business and was part of the digital collider that was held at St. Clair, so that was great.
Yeah, that was a great event. I just want to take a second to brag on Dayton for a minute and how special our small business ecosystem is here. Luke is actually the FCA Small Business Person of the Year for the government, and Jim Masonbrink, who we mentioned earlier, he's a Small Business Person of the Year for the industry. So we have 2 of these Small Business People of the Year right here in Dayton. Luke's an awesome champion of small business. Highly suggest reaching out to him. Obviously, we work a lot together, but he's just a wealth of information and couldn't be more helpful.
And we have, thank you. Thank you. We also put the points of contact out on the websites for my small business directors, so you can get a hold of them. My personal email, well, my work email is out there, my phone number, and then usually
your personal email. You like to live dangerously.
I know, I do. And then I have my work phone number, but you know, with all the different events we have, I need to update and put my work phone, but my work cell phone, 937-902-0695. So feel free to, if you can't reach me, always check my emails and try to get back, but please, you know, call me there. So we're here to help you out. We're here to listen and, you know, make sure small business has a seat at the table.
And you do a great job at it. And we'll just keep continuing on down the line.
Sure. I work for the CDAO, Chief Digital and AI Office. If you're not familiar, it's brand new. I think we're technically at FOC since June, which means we have a website and we have a logo, things like that. I was initially part of the JAIC, Joint Artificial Intelligence Center, and I was helping to stand up and lead the Tradewind initiative, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. The JAIC was then consolidated with the Chief Data Officer, the people running the Advana platform, and Defense Digital Services to what is now CDAO. So we're all still very much trying to figure out from a mission vision perspective, like what are we doing? There's things like JADC2, if you're familiar with that term, Joint All-Domain Command and Control. You know, is OSD going to pin the rose on CDAO for governments and leading that? It's still a big question mark. There's some other things from a joint command effort that are being discussed and stuff like that. So my comments and remarks are going to kind of focus on acquisition, mission, and vision focus, and that's where I think the opportunity element kind of comes into play. So with the JAIC came acquisition authority, which is a little bit weird and different. So JAIC was technically reported to Secretary of Defense, but was not an OSD organization. It was like in this weird middle ground and was given acquisition authority. And so part of me and the people in my shop were trying to figure out, our mission was to accelerate AI into basically be an enabler for the department to accelerate delivery, whether that's speed to contract or transition to a program of record, like just get it in the hands of soldiers and make their lives better, faster, easier, whatever it was. So that was initially the JAIC mission. It has now since been expanded into data and digital with CDAO now. So we're still focused on AI, but we've added a couple elements to it. So we started this effort called Tradewind. And Tradewind, if it conceptually or academically is not a thing, it's an environment, if that makes sense. And within the environment, we're building either rapid acquisition contracting mechanisms, or we're building processes, workflows, or partnerships to enable that acceleration of basically technology capabilities, whether it's AI, data, analytics, things like that. So right now our focus is speed to contract. Like we're taking a completely, we learned a lot in the first year of Tradewind. We did a few things. We had some early adopters who like wanted to try some new novel processes out and things like that. But like we realized like one of two things. Most people in the department, like when they're utilizing some of the more underutilized authorities, whether it's other transaction authority, 2373, if you're familiar with that, experimental purposes, like we're like heavy, like leaning and forward leaning on a lot of these underutilized authorities so that we're unconstrained in how we approach that mission to accelerate delivery. And right now, most of the department, and I would say most of the acquisition workforce, because of how we were taught in our field, can only think in this very four-dimensional box, and it's really hard to get out of that box. So right now, like we're learning, even though we're coming up with novel processes to maybe try to get diversity of thought, or, you know, like you're talking about small businesses, like I want to find startups. I want to find like those people like who they're doing bleeding edge, but like they're so focused on nothing near government because there's just too much, right? It's just too much. And we're trying to push those envelopes, so even when we use those things to our advantage, we're still getting to the same answers that we would if we were doing FAR-based contracting. So we're trying to completely shake the jar a little bit, and we have this new effort that we're putting a lot of energy into called the Trade-Win Solutions Marketplace. And like my vision is this is almost like technology, like our version of an Amazon cart or an Amazon platform or something like for technology solutions. And we've created it in such a way where everything on the platform is in an awardable status. So it's been either evaluated or it's been, we're being compliant with both FAR and non-FAR based like competition requirements and stuff like that. So then you can choose if you want to add something to your cart or whatever it is, you choose what contracting path you need to go down. So because right now using the more common methods of like down selects and pitch days, Shark Tank pitches, demos, even challenges where there's like actual data and stuff like that, again, we're getting to the same answer. We're not getting enough, we're not reaching more of the non-traditionals that I think a lot of the innovation and bleeding edge stuff is coming from. So that's one effort that we're putting a lot of energy into. The second is the digital proving ground. We had a test run of this about a month ago. But it's again about environments, and we're trying to create an environment where things are constantly coming in and out of the environment, and the government customer can choose, and we're still not sure yet, like what does that look like, or what are you doing in the environment? Is it demos? Is there an actual technical sandbox? Like that's still, it's so dependent on the use case and the mission. Like it's hard to do this like from a department perspective. But having this competitive environment where things are happening, and I'm going to say more real time. I don't know if that's the right term, but because we're finding like even if we can get a process that's 30 days or less, or 30 to 60 days type thing, which we have done and we are doing, it's still too late almost. Like by the, it's just we're just so focused on like. If you know you just want to look at something, assess something, like you should just be able to take that and run with it. And so from a contractual perspective, we're trying to create that mechanism with a couple of these opportunities where as you're keeping a pulse on the market, and if you see something and you like it, you go for it. And from an acquisition perspective, we hope to get there to where we can also take that same mindset and apply it to transition. So we're focusing right now on contracting. That's kind of my wheelhouse. That's what I've been doing my entire career. And we are like, I probably have a lot of very unpopular opinions about how the department in general is doing contracting, especially as it pertains to OTAs. I was really disappointed in the latest memo from, I think it was DPC, saying like, oh, these are the government systems like we have to be using when it comes to OTAs and stuff like that, SAM.gov being one of them. Like I understand like the need for that and stuff like that, but you're just creating barriers. And if the goal is to accelerate and get to non-traditionals, startups, and do tech transfer and stuff like that, like it's just going to slow us down. So one of my mantras, I have my partner at Army Contracting Command Rock Island, who until we actually receive our acquisition authority, she's kind of my execution arm. One of our mantras is don't FAR on my OTA. Anytime a government customer comes to us and their expectation is they just want to use our process to get to their answer, it's not a good fit. And it's a cultural problem too, or a cultural challenge that we're facing. There's this huge institutional inertia that we're constantly trying to like rake through. It's really difficult. So we're really hoping that a couple of these initiatives are almost disruptive to the point where people start to like feel the success and they want to model it, mimic it, use it, whatever. So those are I would say from an acquisition perspective from CDAO, the primary things we're driving toward in terms of, like I said, that the acceleration, speed to contract, and delivery of like all the things we need to not just keep up, but get ahead in terms of mission and solutions. That's our focus.
When you bring up institutional inertia, I think a lot of these folks can feel your pain. And especially SAM.gov, I can feel your pain. So there's challenges. And we'll just continue on down the line.
All right, awesome. Hey, appreciate the invite to be part of this. It's always great to get a chance to come down to Dayton, even though this is my second time, but it's a great community here. I'm the CEO out at Bespin. I've been in this position for about 5 months now, maybe a little bit less than 5 months. But for Bespin, we're a very young organization. We initially got our start in 2019 with Dr. Roper, who foresaw a tsunami of demand for mobile that was going to be coming across the Air Force. And so he got with PEO Bez and said, hey, we need to figure out how we can get after this for the future. And so Mr. Rich Aldridge and team took some risk. They went and got about 8 airmen, and it was 8 folks, and they threw them in a closet and gave them some Mountain Dew and Hot Pockets and said, hey, go build me a software factory. And they all looked around and said, well, what is a software factory and what are we doing with mobile? But to look what that team started with and where we are today is absolutely amazing. And a lot of that has also been thanks to the small businesses that we've been able to invest in and bring them part of our family within Bespin. And so I can go on and on about our small businesses that we have and success that we've had there, especially with the hunger and the drive that's there. And so they are very much part of our family at Bespin and very embedded within our culture. But within this short amount of time, we built a full end-to-end CI/CD pipeline that's fully accredited. We have a continuous ATO that's been signed off by Mr. Danny Holtzman. And so for people in the room that know how long it normally takes to get an ATO, normally it's, if you're good at it, 12 to 18 months. Right now we have it down, if you follow our security guardrails and you come in our pipeline, we can have it done in about 6 days. And so through that innovative thought, the trust as well that Mr. Holtzman has given us to make sure that we set within our security guardrails, we've been very, very successful on that front. We also, I think we heard Guido in the last panel that was talking about our paired programming with our small businesses. And so within Bespin, what truly has made us successful, in my humble opinion, is that we went out, we went and found kind of the best of small businesses in that particular piece of how do you build an app, and we brought them in. And with that, initially was coming to Bespin, I was like, man, this is just a recipe for disaster. I'm going to have 5 to 6 different vendors in this ecosystem, and they're all going to be competing with each other, and they're all going to be trying to take their legs out from one another, but that is not the way. I'm very delighted it doesn't operate that way at all. They're amazing folks. They believe in our paired programming piece that I'm very proud of. I know Guido did mention, hey, we have a retention issue with some of our young folks. I don't see that as a problem. I think that's just a benefit to our country and a benefit to the Air Force, because more than likely they're going to come back around for a small business and they're going to keep contributing. But we have been able to very quickly upscale our workforce with that by partnering with the true technical experts. But we've also been able to, with our small businesses, most of them, or really all of them, have never operated within the DoD. And so to bring them in firsthand, and now they're working hand in hand with a young airman that's experiencing these same problem sets that we are trying to resolve, it's a great match that puts those folks side by side, and they're able to develop a very close relationship that has really set us up for success and how we keep pushing forward. For our vision, we're going to own mobile, bottom line. We will own mobile for the Air Force, and so that's really what we're going after. That's our niche. We do web and mobile application, but within that, there's just more than just the ones and zeros of building an app. We have to be truly locked in on that user experience, and that user accessibility, and just the experience of an application For the DoD, we do not have a good track record on that. I can go on and on about the fails that we've had as we've released applications that have not been successful for our airmen, and we don't want to put our name to anything like that. And also data. We've talked a lot about data. An app can be pretty, it can be great, but if you don't have the data and you don't have access to certain data points, it's worthless, right? We need to have something that provides value to our airmen, and that's for the big A across the Air Force. And so that's something that we're continuing to work out, we're continuing to get after as well. And so we're very excited for what's on the horizon for Bespin, but definitely I'm a huge advocate for small businesses. We couldn't be where we are today, and I'm very fortunate to be where I'm at. Our culture within Bespin is a truly amazing space. I've worked in a lot of different places, but nothing like this. It's truly awesome.
I always say culture eats process for breakfast. Yep. We do things a little bit differently up here. We feed our engineers Mountain Dew and Twinkies. We'll have to try Hot Pockets. And online to you, sir.
All right, hey, thanks for the opportunity to be here virtually. So with AFWorks, so our mission is to celebrate agile and affordable capability transition by teaming innovative technologists with airmen and guardians. So important to know that AFWorks encompasses both the Air Force and Space Force components, just like we are technically nested underneath AFRL. So one lab, both services. So it's really important. We're across the entire spectrum. And so to do that, we interact with a lot of the folks that you have up there on the stage. We have three main areas that we'll talk about. So AF Ventures, that is the execution arm of the SuperSeeder program for the department. So that's running all our three processes. So we've got our open topic where anybody can throw any idea up there, and we evaluate those to see how they could fill a need. We've got our specific topic, which is where we're partnering with either tech directors in the labs, with PEOs and LCMC for specific needs that they have, and allowing them to evaluate and then award those contracts. And then the Strat-Fi TAC-Fi program. So using authorities that we've gotten through the Small Business Administration, be able to use matching commercial and other funding, government funding, to provide increased amounts through the small business dollars. So up to 1.8 million matching on the TAC-Fis, and then up to $15 million on the Strat-Fi. So that's been fairly successful in getting some bigger dollar awards than some of our other bets through the SBIR pipeline. So that's our main one on the SuperSeeder side. So Spark, think of that as our internal innovation within the Air Force. So how do we start to build a culture piece out of using emerging tech? How do we build a culture piece of adopting new ways of thinking, and then sourcing all those ideas from all the folks that are out there? So we have our big R requirements process that has very kind of rigid ideas of how you get to different capability development. But we also have hundreds of thousands of people out there that have ideas that we want to figure out how to harness. And they could be things from just a unit level stuff to make their lives easier. That just takes a little bit of support and resourcing, all the way up to ideas that'll be able to scale throughout the rest of the Air Force. So Spark is really there to figure out how do we use some of this new technology and how to transition it, how do we build up a network throughout the Department of the Air Force to share those ideas. So that's a big focus there. And then where I sit is Prime. So what we look at is where are emerging tech sectors that have pretty significant commercial investment, and how can we, as the DoD and Air Force, get in early on those to help shape them, leverage the investment, and see where they can fit to deliver capability for the department. So we've had a couple of efforts up to this point. So Orbital Prime is focused on commercial investment in space technologies that we can use for on-orbit servicing and eventually space junk remediation. And then Agility Prime is our other effort looking at hybrid and electric new transformer vertical lift capabilities that are out there in the commercial sector, and how can we use those for DoD uses. So throughout all of AFWorks, we look for building partnerships. So that's across industry, investors, interagency was found is very important to reach outside of just the Air Force and the DoD in general, to make sure there's pathways for some of these commercial techs to go through. So building those interagency, it certainly takes some effort in building those up, but they're important to make sure that we can get the DoD aligned with some of what the other government agencies that enable some of this tech to progress. So excited to be here virtually. We are across the country. So I'm coming to you live today from on the DC area. We have a lot of folks out in the Dayton area, but then we're also throughout the US.
Yeah, I find myself recommending a ton of my clients to the Tech Connect site. And then for LSB Hub, a lot of great resources around you guys. And we work a lot with the partnership intermediary agreements like WBI and Apex to help clients do that SBIR process. I'll go right back to you. What are some of your top priorities in the coming years, 1-2 year time frame?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of talked about the three kind of mechanisms that we've brought up. So the open topic has been something that we've done for just about 3 years now. Specific is kind of your traditional SBIRs of, hey, here's a specific need. How can small businesses go out and meet that? And then the Stratify TACFI is the one that we've had the authorities over the last couple of years. So we kind of built up these three different tool sets within the SBIR process. The next kind of stage is one, how do we make sure we have education not only out in the industry, so it's events like this, but then also education within the Air Force of making sure everybody knows how to engage, how to use the tools. So that's from throughout LCMC to make sure the PEOs know how can they use a specific topic to get after problems they have. So for example, I think the recent one we had with the LCMC with the weapons director was their pitch day where you can rapidly award a lot of contracts and get a funnel of specific needs they have in a pretty quick time frame. So part of it's just education on our piece. But then it's also how do we align the tools that we built and the structure for executing the SBIR program with bigger Air Force needs. There'll be a gamut of things that they can go to. So within the Air Force, certainly we've aligned pretty strongly with the SecAF's operational imperative. So he's put some pretty strong signals on, hey, what sort of tech and capabilities do we need to start to foster within the department to meet our pacing threats. So the portion of that we're going to make sure is really well aligned to the OIs and how we execute that. And then there's certainly some pieces that will continue. There's going to be areas within SBIR that's just your basic research and things like that we've historically done in the lab that are still going to be in the lab. Just we need to foster that emerging tech and provide some initial funding for these innovative startups and small businesses to develop those capabilities so they can expand them commercial. So it's really taking the tools that we started to build as AFWERX kind of identity there and make sure they are well vectored to what the department needs.
I'll be proactive on this question. Do you have any update on the SBIR program as far as continuation of it? I know that's one of the questions we get with it coming up on the end of the fiscal year.
So it's absolutely a thing that we are watching closely on the SBIR reauthorization. So I don't have any inside baseball that I can share here, but we are actively looking at that to see the impact. So we have a vested interest. Everybody here in the audience has an interest, and really for the industrial base, it's really needed that gets moving. So we continue to work with OSD to answer all the questions that Congress and others have to try to address their concerns. Certainly, within AFWERX and this department's SBIR program, we've put things in place to make sure that we are doing our diligence with the companies to try to address concerns that folks have from outside. So we make sure that the contracts that we're awarding are correct, they're going to the right sources, and we're keeping that base within the U.S. So we're doing our part, we're providing the info there, but as far as real-time updates, I do not have any at this time.
You're throwing some fastballs there, Lou, coming with the heat.
Well, that's kind of the question we usually get.
Right.
Got it out here and stuff.
Oh, we're just as curious on our end.
Yeah,
How about you, Bonnie? What would you say? You're such a young organization. I think you guys are like really super neat. What are some of your priorities next 1-2 year time frame?
Yeah, again, organizationally, they're still trying to figure that out. There is a lot of energy on JADC2, and again, Joint All-Domain Command and Control. So I have some colleagues who refer to it as like, how do we unscrew JADC2? Because I'm learning this is something that's been kind of been swirling for a year or two, and they still don't know where it's going and stuff. So there's a lot of, organizationally, that is probably going to be a primary mission focus, especially for our algorithmic warfare directorate. From an acquisition perspective, in the next year or two, like there's 2 different models like I'm really actively watching and will be engaging in. Aside from the Tradewin Solutions Marketplace that I mentioned, there's another one called GUIDE, Global Incident Defense Experiments. So I think this initiated with one of the COCOMs, combatant commands, kind of started what is now referred to as GUIDE, where they were doing joint exercises and running these experiments with new technologies and stuff like that. And I believe CDAO is going to be, if they're not leading that, they're going to be like kind of a major, governance might not be the right term, but stakeholder in how GUIDE is run and what are they experimenting with and where are they going, like which COCOM are they doing it at, things like that. So we are initiating an agreement with George Mason University to do a public-private partnership study. And as part of this study, it's going to be kind of like, we're going to give them a use case to see if they can apply a PPP model to something like GUIDE, because we know there has to be, I think a few of us have mentioned that relationship and connection with industry, and can we do it through a PPP type model? So that's going to be one. And then the other is a problem solving environment that we've termed as Labyrinth. It's in my defensive cyber days, it's a model we tried to use there where it's a problem solving environment, and problem solvers such as experts in industry like yourself can come in and out of the environment to basically solve the problem of the day kind of thing. So we are piloting that with the 18th Airborne Corps, and that should be starting we're doing an award this fiscal year for that as well. So we've already resourced like who an environment manager would look like for this environment, and like we're going to be partnering with this environment manager who's a nonprofit to help us like how do we identify problem solvers, and how do you onboard them, offboard them, like how do they get access, like all those types of things. Because if we can have a super user like 18th Airborne Corps like actually seeing some success with a model like that, like then we can possibly take it somewhere else, scale it, things like that.
Awesome, yeah. Awesome. We'll switch it up a little bit. You mentioned culture at Bespin. So given that, what do you look for in your contractors, your small businesses? I mean, you don't want to disrupt that. So how do you go about that? What are some of the characteristics that you're really interested in, non-traditional, small, innovative, agile, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so for Bespin, that's initially what we really went after. We really wanted individuals that were very innovative and open-minded. In every one of our contracts, we write in that paired programming bit, and for me, if you're not willing to do that paired programming bit, it's a non-starter in a conversation. So I truly believe in airman development and development across our workforce, including within our vendor teams. I try to stay away from the word of using contractors just because in my past experiences, it seems to have kind of a negative cognizant. So I like using vendor family or vendor partner because that's really how I think of them, and they're really part of our team. So it's really about an organization or a business that wants to come in. They want a team. They want to be mission focused and actually delivering capability. Yep, I get it. It's a business. You got to make money, you got to make a profit, all those pieces, but at the end of the day, we are expected to deliver, and we got to deliver on time. We don't have the flexibility that a lot of other entities have of being over schedule and over cost. We operate on a shoestring budget, and if I'm one day late on delivery, I'm taking probably 5 to 6 meetings trying to explain why I'm one day late. And so, kind of wrap all that up, it's got to be team-oriented, mission-focused, and willing to be part of the culture that we currently have, and just open and honest communication across the board. We really pride ourselves that it's ideas over rank, that you don't necessarily have to be the highest ranking person. I'm the dumbest person in Bespin, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I'm surrounded by 20-pound brain folks that are extremely innovative, and they will get the job done. And so we need to have that same mindset that, yes, it may be a brand new person that's joining one of our vendor teams, or it could be a brand new person right out of tech school that may be the true expert and help us get after that. So it's all about that sort of mindset and that having a good vibe with that individual coming in.
I'm starting to see where that good culture is coming from. And it's such a valuable asset, intangible but valuable.
And really, they've talked about, we've all talked about those strategic partnerships with, AFWorks has been great. I know I threw out that question to him, but that's one of the major questions we're getting now, just because we've really been able to push the innovation, those great solutions by using that. And really the strategic partnership with AFWorks, working closely with AFRL, the research labs, and then Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. We have our SIBR program manager, Ken Kessler. I know you've met him before. He was at Lifecycle Industry Day. And then we also have those innovation cells within the POs that are really, trying to accelerate change and look for those innovative solutions, look for those non-traditionals, and, making sure that helping them do business with us. Because at times it's like all the paperwork, all the, we just, we really want to be innovative, or can we do it with the government? And it's like, hey, we're here to help, we're here to push, and really develop those strategic partnerships.
Yeah, shout out to one of my PTAC clients, JJR. I mean, they worked their way through the SIBR process into a phase 3, and they use it well, but you still have to educate the customer. And it's, the need for innovative acquisition, speed of acquisition has always been a big thing.
Well, I think the other thing too, and you talk about consult and all that, as part of the PTAC, I'll just use the acronym because
Terrible acronym.
You do a lot of great consulting. There's a lot of resources that are out there for small businesses. So like what we tell small businesses is, look at your PTAC, you look at the Small Business Administration, look at the rules and regulations that are out there that can help you out, and then do your research when you come to us, so then we can put that package together and help out. But there's a lot of, we've talked about the SAME event, or even LSID, CMMC is huge now, and the free resources that are out there that are just a great resource and will help out.
Cyber, Project Spectrum, I mean, there's a whole host of them. Yeah, so you definitely build your team, right? I mean, you want to use your resources as best you can.
And if I could add one other piece to it, and something that, within SIBRs are great, I love them, right? It really gets after how to bring innovation and stand things up. The problem set that we're running into now is how you can't live off SIBRs forever, right? That's supposed to be a short-term solution. So, as an acquisition community, we're going to an IDIQ strategy for a kind of a midterm strategy to kind of wing ourselves off the SIBRs. But it seems like that is a struggle that we're still having in our acquisition world. And so if there's ideas, suggestions on that, I'm all ears. I'd love to have it. But just kind of remind me where we are today and trying to wing ourselves off of that. And how do you really do that and continue to operate and still bring greatness to our Air Force? So.
Yeah, it's right tool for the right job, right? And figuring out what your tool set is. It's a constant challenge because as organizations change and capability needs are different, you have to constantly adjust. So this is for all of you, and I'll let anybody hop in whenever you want to. Specific opportunities that you see in your organization coming in the near term. Yeah, right, not all at once.
I'll jump on that one real quick. So there's a couple of things that we have. I'm very interested in the race to the cloud that Ms. Kay has been bringing up. We have a cloud operations team that is truly amazing. That when we first stood up, it took us about 800 man hours to get into Cloud One from the time the app was produced and secured and ready to go. Right now, we have that down to less than 15 to 20 hours. Getting it, that's once again because of our vendor partner that's there and the team that we've in place and the blueprinting that we've done and this great partnership that we do have with the Cloud One folks. But I think that is definitely something that Bestman can bring a lot of value to as long as those mission sets are there. And then also within our user experience and user monitoring piece. That's something that we're not good with. I already mentioned this for the Air Force, and so just trying to get after what are those true design principles that should be standard across the board, so you always have the same look and feel, just like a Google or Yahoo or whatever. You know what button to click and you know where to go. But also within our cybersecurity piece. We put a lot of work in our cybersecurity. And pen testing, if I could get rid of one thing during my tenure, it's going to be I want to get rid of pen testing. In my opinion, pen testing is good for 5 minutes. After I run that pen test, it is no longer valid. So I really need to get to a real-time, automated security posture that at any point in time, I know exactly where that app is, I know exactly what vulnerabilities exist, and I can prioritize my workforce accordingly. And then if we're not able to get it secure for whatever reason, we can pull the plug on it. But right now, I do a pen test, and I wait for 12 months, 18 months, and then I'll go back and pen test it. So to me, that's not secure, and so we've really got to get after those pieces. So for me, that's kind of our top 3 that I would love to see.
Awesome. No, that's great information. I'm sure everybody here appreciates it. We done already?
I'm sorry, you're holding up these people from happy hour.
So I'm the guy keeping people from the beer. Is that what's going on?
I'm just saying. I would love to network with you guys some more. You guys provided so many great opportunities for these folks. I know they want to hear more. What do you guys think of them? Was that good? Thank you very much. Appreciate you being
Thanks,
here.
guys. That was awesome.
I mean, that's a way to wrap up, right? I mean, because we want to help out. I know a lot of the industry folks here today are here because they have great solutions or want to help the Air Force innovate and progress and move forward. So I hope you enjoyed our conference these last 2 days and enjoyed the theme of innovation at the edge. Just carrying on from that last innovator of Dayton, Ermal Frey's, his company DRT is alive and thriving. In fact, they're having a leadership summit across the hall at Tradewinds. I just got stopped in the hall and said, "Why are you showing a video of my company, DRT?" Hey, Dayton Innovation, it is the home, it is the birthplace of innovation. So I appreciate everyone being here. We do have, if you're interested in slides, we're gonna try to find a way to post those on our website under our past events. And I hope you'll join all of us all out in the hallway for a networking social. Drinks are on me. There, thank you.